सिन्दूरारुणविग्रहा त्रिनयना माणिक्यमौली स्फुरत् तारानायकशेखरा स्मितमुखी मामीनवक्षोरुहा पाणिभ्यामलिपूर्णरत्नचषकम् रक्तोत्पलं बिभ्रतीं सौम्यां रत्नघटस्थरक्तचरणां ध्यायेत् परामम्बिकाम्। सान्निपातिकज्वर सततज्वर विषमज्वर ग्रह नक्षत्र दोषाञ्चान्या हर हर काली सर सर गौरी गम विद्ये आले माले काले बन्धे भज भज विद्ये मख मख विद्ये नाशय नाशय पापम् हर हर दुःस्वप्नम् विध्वंसय विध्वंसय विघ्न विनाशिनि रजनी सन्ध्ये मुन्दुभिनादे मानस्तोषे मानसवेगे शङ्खिनी चक्रिणी वज्रिणी गदिनी शूलिनी अपमृत्यु विनाशिनी विश्वेश्वरी द्राविडी केशवदैते पशुपति सहिते धीममर्दिनि गमनी कामिनी शबरी विराटी वाचक्री ॐ द्रं 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 ॐ द्रं गुरु गुरु
Namaste and welcome to all our beloved participants for this noon session on the Global Festival of Yoga, which is presented to you by Indica Yoga, which has a mission of the authentic, immersive and transformative yoga to be delivered to people of all walks of life. Today's theme had been based on the aspect of sadhana, which is more important in the field of yoga, because yoga is ultimately for the inner transformation. So for that, sadhana is the basic tool, and it could be Patanjali, it could be the other scriptures of yoga. The basic emphasis has been on sadhana. That's why this morning we had the aspect of yoga sadhana taken in a different way, in a lighter way, with yogic walk, which is presented, which had all aspects of the sadhana. I would say the mudras, it could be the pranayama techniques, it could be the chantings, it could be. So from there, we take now, from the chanting and the external things of sadhana, the aspects of sadhana, we are to move into the internal aspect of sadhana. Now what we have as Mauna as a yoga sadhana paradigm. As we all know, Mauna is not just a verbal silence, but quietening of the chitta vrittis, the manaf prashamana, the silencing of the mind, which is very important, which is the culmination of all yogic practices. This is going to be presented today by an excellent couple, Shri Adinarayanan and Smriti Adinarayanan. And I take this privilege on behalf of Indica Yoga to welcome today's panelists, Shri Adinarayanan and Smriti Adinarayanan from Anadi Foundation from Tamil Nadu. And while they are with us, Namaste, Smriti ji and Adinarayan ji. It's a pleasure meeting you. Personally, for me, after a long time, almost I think after a decade's time, I still remember the wonderful time we used to have, and I used to visit the Amrita campus along with Guruji and all our team of people. And nice to see that passion what you had that time to take this journey ahead in the field of yoga spirituality. You have successfully proceeded in that, both of you together. So our best wishes from all of us to you. And also, I would like to give a small introduction about both of you. Shri Adinarayanan and Smriti Adinarayanan, as today they are the founders of Anadi Foundation. Anadi, as we know, is like beginningless. So they have reached out to more than 30,000 people through their educational, sustainability, scientific and well-being based programs. Both of them teach courses on inner development at IIT Delhi and various other institutions as well. And the Anadi Foundation has been invited to be part of the value initiative things of the Government of India, the Chintan Shibir, which is part of the MHRD, the Ministry of Human Resource Development as well. And Shri Adinarayan is also an adjunct professor of practice at NRCVEE at IIT Delhi with global exposure and rooted in the Parampara. Shri Adinarayanan and Smriti bring the essence of their tapasya, swadhyaya and shraddha into all the programs that they are offering. And Shri Adinarayan had got the good fortune of spending more than 150 days in Mauna tapasya, in complete isolation and minimal food intakes. So this today, what he is presenting on Mauna as a sadhana is not just something that he is just theoretically presenting, but he has experienced that, and that experience of him that he is bringing to us and sharing with us. And of course, and I did not say that both of them are technically highly qualified. And Shri Adinarayanan, if I'm right, I remember that he had completed his master's in computer science from the University of North Carolina State University, and Smriti as well had done her master's in informations from the University of New York. And with this high technical qualification, both of them have been working as faculty members in one of the prestigious university in this country, which is Amrita Vishwavidyapeetham, under the guidance of Mata Amritanandamayi. And since then, they had this passion, which I have seen both the couple. It's not so easy. If one would be interested, the other may not be interested. So here, both of them together taking the way ahead as Grihasthas is a very nice model that they are setting for the future generation. And from that technical engineering that they have both brought their dimensions to this inner engineering or the human engineering of yoga spirituality, and bringing its relevance to contemporary things like leadership, sustainability, and even a lot of youth programs that they have been doing. So we are very glad to have them today to share their experience, which is based on the spiritual insights of Mauna as a yoga sadhana paradigm. With this introductory note, once again, on behalf of Indica Yoga, I welcome both of you, Adinarayan ji and Smriti, for this wonderful session, and hope to have more of an experience of what this Mauna is from you. And also welcome all the participants who are watching us through the Zoom meeting, and also from Facebook and in YouTube and other social media channels that they are watching us. It has become a regular practice for many people to spend their time with purposeful yogic interactions that we are having with people like you, Adiji and Smriti. And if you have any questions, I know after going through a state of mauna, all our questions will be answered. That's what people like Bal Brendan experienced in the presence of Ramana Maharishi. It's all, yesterday even, I think Anuradha ji brought this to the interaction with Maheshwara ji in the interaction in the last night session of Kechari Mudra. The silence is the best part. So once we go into that, I think all our questions will go away, as in the Dakshinamurti Stotra it is mentioned, Gurostu Maunam Vyakyanam Sishyastu Chinna Samshayam. So through the Mauna, all our darkness will go away, all the ignorance will go away. I think that is the best to have. And we are very glad that you are bringing this dimension, and we are all eager to learn this from you, Adiji and Smriti. Thank you.
Namaste, all of you, and namaste, Subbuji. Thank you, Subbuji, for this wonderful introduction. And thank you, Indica Yoga. First of all, hats off to Indica Yoga for putting together these wonderful speakers that we have been having in the past days and the days to come as well. So it is definitely our honor and privilege to be part of this session. And we hope to share some insights from our own personal experience. So what we're going to do today is look at, Mauna as a yoga sadhana paradigm. It means that all of us seek some sort of fulfillment in life. And that motivates us to take a certain inward journey. And this inward journey has been on different levels personally for both of us. And in this journey, we've also discovered that Mauna can be a very, very powerful tool or a pathway. And that is what we hope to share with all of you today. So we'll start with a prayer.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Our humble pranams to all present here, who are expressions of that fundamental divine principle, where all of this created reality is nothing but an expression of that fundamental divine principle. And that is captured by this wonderful prayer. There is a concrete cognition, a remembrance. Purnamada Purnamidam, Purnat Purnamudachyate. Purnatva, Purna, means that which is complete, fulfilled. All of us, in and through all of our actions, all of our life experiences, seek that fulfillment, that completeness, that completion. Knowledge is when we recognize that only that remains, that completion ever is. There was never a time when we were not complete or we were incomplete. Right now, we are that Purnatva. Forever, we are that Purnatva. We lack nothing. And yet, out of that recognition, springs forth this creative, wonderful creation, which is an expression of that Purnatva. So when we, in one sense, when we say Mauna as a yoga sadhana, a paradigm for yoga sadhana, sadhana is the means towards the sadhya. And what is the sadhya? The sadhya is the experience of Purnatva. Mauna is fullness, fullness itself. completeness. The sadhya is the goal of Purnatva. And mauna can be used as a means towards experiencing it. It once happened with me. For the purpose of Vyavahara, we distinguish between me and not me. Otherwise, this conversation would not be. So we don't wish to demonstrate mauna. So this will still be verbal. So we will not be verbally silent. I had graduated out of my master's, I had finished my master's. And it was intense, deadline after deadline. And at the end of it, I didn't want to take up a job immediately. So for about 3 days, my roommates left me alone. So I was in our apartment for the first time. I was left alone, physically alone. And a deep relaxation overtook me. It was so deeply relaxing that I did not know the passage of the 3 days. And when my roommates returned back, in their own words, they could not find the Adi that they had left behind. It was a new person sitting there. In my experience, it was just deeply relaxing. And it grew further and further. And I wanted to understand the phenomenon. I wanted words for it because everyone around me was questioning, but I was not able to provide an answer. Then I started referring to Indian literature, spiritual literature. And then I understood that that experience was an experience of samadhi. Samadhi means generally we have this concrete subject-object dual experience, which is very concrete for all of us. I am the subject, and all of this is the object. But then when we go a little deeper, we still ourselves a little. We can see ourselves seeing. We can watch ourselves perceiving. And hence this gets transformed into an object. If we still ourselves even further, then we can watch our emotions. We can clearly observe our emotions, our mind, our state of mind, everything, like a fruit on the palms of our hand. It's unmissable. And that becomes an object where I is different from even the mind. Like that to the subtlest extent, where we would be able to clearly perceive, as is said in the yogic literature, the Bahya Karana and the Antakarana, the outer instrument and the inner instrument. And I is not any of this. I is not this phenomenon. That I does not have definitions, does not have guna. And then who is the subject, which is the object? That boundary constraint suddenly gives way. It starts becoming fluid. It's a very simple experience of samadhi. Need not be dramatic at all. Samadhi, a state where now these boundaries sort of become fluid. which are otherwise constantly reinforced through various stimuli and response, which is what the object and subject boundary constraint is. It's reinforced constantly by our actions, actions through thought, word, and deed, constantly going on. Thought is also an action. Word is also an action. Deed is indeed an action. Constantly going on and reinforcing that which is not there. In the first place, it's not there, but seemingly reinforced. And hence, when we talk of Mauna as a sadhana paradigm, yoga is the experience of this, where the subject-object boundary constraints give way.
That is what classically they talk about a pot which actually has space in it, which encloses a certain space. And when the outer structure is broken, then whatever is outside and inside actually merge together.
That's a classic way to look at it. And it's so true. But however much we try to grasp it, it seems, to not be
Elusive.
graspable.
Quite
Yeah, elusive. So Mauna, the approach of Mauna that we take here is like yoga. Yoga is both the means and the end. Likewise, Mauna is the means and the end. So through this session, we will also use some personal anecdotes to illustrate these concepts, which are very easy. It's almost a no-brainer. Anybody and everybody can get benefited through these processes. Very simple, very sahaja. Not something where we imagine top rishis, top yogis means sitting high up in the mountains, completely, still their breathing. That is also wonderful. But how can everybody benefit by a deeper understanding of these processes and adapting these processes to everyday living? How it can liberate us from what binds us, from what constrains us. And that which constrains us makes us feel miserable. We search here and there to get out of that misery of feeling constrained, locked in. Even the feeling of constraint within this body, locked in, and something pushes us to break these barriers, break these boundaries. And that is a constant search, a seeking. Towards what? That again is elusive. Seemingly. That's where the Shastras give us so much clarity, give us so much solace. And that is what this great shloka from the Upanishads reinforces. Purnamada Purnamidam, Purnat Purnamudachyate. There is nothing but that completeness, that Purnatva. And we are free to approach it as a sadhya, as a goal, apparent goal. We apparently being separated from that whole, that wholesome experience, that holistic experience. And use various means at our disposal to approach the sadhya. So Mauna, as was said, is not just verbal silence, but what it means, it's beautiful that it cannot be described. But yet we will use the frameworks given in the Yoga Vasishta to help us understand what Mauna is.
So in fact, when we talk about Mauna Sadhana, it is slightly different from the Mauna Vrata that we take as a part of our daily schedule. Or some people take Sashti Vrata or whatever, Ekadashi or whatever. People could take up a Mauna Vrata for a short bout. But when we take it as a sadhana or a tapasya, then it means that more dimensions are actually added to it. And that is what we would be looking at through the frameworks that are presented in the Yoga Vasishta. And in fact, if you look at the circumstances under which different people would like to take up Mauna, at least we've had a lot of people coming to our ashram. Our ashram is located near Payani in Tamil Nadu. And we do these Mauna Sadhana programs for people. And when we ask people towards the end of the program, why did they sign up, or before the program, why did they sign up? Many of them would share that either they were very frustrated with whatever was happening around them, or they were too bored or bogged on by the routine life that they were leading, that they wanted some kind of a change or break from that. Or they could be satiated with whatever life has already offered to them, that they find no meaning in exploring further. It's not a fulfillment. If you're fulfilled, then it's a different thing. But there will be a certain satiated feeling where you feel that you don't want to do all the vyavaharik things around you. And that is when people feel that they want to take up Mauna. But of course, we have seen that with many people, it's a sort of a smashana vairagyam. It is a momentary vairagyam. But of course, when you make use of that momentary vairagyam to proceed a little further, then that becomes a stepping stone for rapid progress on the path. So we cannot just wish away that it's a temporary vairagya, it should not be taken up. That temporary vairagya that we get, or that opening that we get, if we make use of it, then that can become a stepping stone for further exploration as well. Okay. And that smashana vairagyam or that momentary vairagyam can be held on to a little more so that the sadhana can be practiced.
So what in turn this means is that we can grow that vairagya.
Yes.
Vairagya means detachment. Now, detachment could happen through various means, as has been described. So that is all clubbed together under the classic, term Shmashana Vairagya. Shmashana is the cremation ground. So those who experience the loss of a dear one, they feel a vairagya, a detachment from their life processes.
They feel, what is life? How is it worth, and such things. But once they get back to normal life after a few days or whatever it is, then that vairagya is gone.
It's gone. And then they are not able to proceed further until some other circumstance. For example, you have a big expectation and you're hugely disappointed because that expectation is not fulfilled. That causes a temporary detachment. Because of that, you experience deeper questions. What is happening? What is my life? What am I doing? What is my purpose? All these are very, very useful. Now, that cannot be trivialized. There, at that time, people think they want to turn to spiritual aspects. For example, meditation. And they may put up a schedule of long duration sadhana, of long duration yoga abhyasa. Daily I will take this up. But then because the vairagya is not sufficient, the detachment is not sufficient, they break the sadhana and get back to normal routine. And they feel so frustrated with themselves because of this. It does not mean it's a problem. It is only in terms of that vairagya needs to be grown. And hence, their mauna can be very beneficially applied if, adapted to those conditions. For example, a bout of illness causes a temporary detachment.
Even this pandemic is causing us
Pandemic.
temporary reflection on our own lives. But what is the guarantee that we will not go back to the same old ways once things return back to normal? And hence some fundamental transformation may be needed, and that's how this Mauna can help really.
So there, when we understand this is equally applicable to everybody. It can be applied even to small children. It can be applied to adults. It can be applied to old people. Why? Because everybody goes through one or the other form of detaching circumstances. Through disappointments, through frustrations, through failures, through fear, through external circumstances, through inner circumstances. That's quite natural. Now, how do we utilize this for our growth?
In fact, at least I've heard that even people who are in theater, drama, or actors, they go through a period of silence because of performing a character for quite some time. The characteristics actually get imprinted on you. So if you have to cleanse the system and be ready for the next role and character, in some period of Mauna is needed. And especially with people who develop this temporary vairagya, we have seen in our personal experience that different stages have to be worked through. It's not like you ask the person to sit quietly in a place, magic is going to happen.
Yeah.
Different stages have to be worked into, different dimensions have to be worked upon through the environment, through practices, through philosophical clarity. All these have to be done.
In fact, that's where, every prayer, we generally end with Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. The three Shantis refer to the Tapatraya, or the three major causes of obstacles to one's pursuit of anything. So the first one is called Adi Daivika, then Adi Bhautika and Adhyatmika. If we look at it, it's very intuitive paradigm, where Adi Daivika means you need the support of divine forces, natural forces, without which one would not be able to proceed in whatever one takes up. At that level, you need harmony, which is also likened to Mauna. At the level of Adi Bhautika, it's living beings around us, including the social being, society around us. Our personal society, our parents, our spouses, our loved ones, our near and dear ones. So many, when they take up some sadhana, some yoga abhyasa, some of the toughest obstacles come from this aspect, where let's say the TV is blaring away and one is trying to do pranayama or dhyana. And one has to negotiate one's way through a modern family. It cannot be just, can't you see I'm doing this? Then there would not be harmony at that level. It would be, so it requires skill, it requires patience, it requires a lot of good value process, value systems, which help establish, at these three dimensions, Shanti or harmony or peace or a sense of calm, harmonious cooperation for us to succeed in what we take up. Now, that is at a certain stage. But when we come to the personal, ourselves, if we look at what are the processes involved, these are beautifully captured in the Yoga Vasishta, which talks of Vak Mauna, Karana Mauna, Kashta Mauna, and Sushupti Mauna. This captures it very, like only Rishi Vasishta could do. Rishi Vasishta instructs Rama, where when Bhagavan Sri Rama gets Vairagya, but no direction. So that's when Rishi Vasishta, Muni Vasishta, instructs Sri Rama. And there, through various episodes, is brilliant instruction, which is very illustrative, diverse. And one of these is the aspect of Mauna. Vak Mauna is verbal silence. Sometimes we wish to just withdraw, be just silent. We don't want to talk to anybody. Why? Because we are just drained of energy. It could easily happen.
It could happen to teachers. We have been teachers for more than a decade in an engineering institution. And we have typically seen that we have sessions right from the morning to evening. And in the evening, all that we would like to do is just keep quiet.
Just keep quiet.
Our students would be very happy if we had kept quiet in the classroom. But somehow, we feel like just keeping quiet in the evening without any interaction. Or if you're a person who's consistent or constantly going to meetings, then you just feel like withdrawing and keeping quiet. So that is a certain push towards that Vak Mauna. Naturally, that happens within us. We'll just feel like being silent.
Yeah, natural process.
But that can also become a challenge when people take up Mauna Sadhana. What happens is it's very difficult to keep quiet, especially when it is imposed, even if it is self-imposed or imposed as a part of a program or whatever it is. Some people have the habit of talking a lot or having conversations with other people or talking to oneself. So that can be a little bit of a challenge. The dimension of Vak Mauna can become a challenge.
And we now exist in a paradigm that is very communicative.
Yes.
So communication is really appreciated. Lack of communication is definitely not appreciated, So communication is the key now, right? So in such circumstances, everyone is trained, is conditioned to communicate everything. So Vak Mauna means regulating that conditioning to communicate. So Vak is not just verbal. In the current paradigm, it's also about internet usage. That's also, so we can expand it into communication. Now we see many young people come to us who say, I hate this mobile phone, this device. I'm addicted to it. I'm not able to do anything about it. Well, actually, it's not so. They are actually very effective communicators. It's not wrong to use a device. That's what I feel. Maybe because of my computer science background. But what do they want? They have this, when they go through this episode, that's a temporary vairagya that they are experiencing because of a certain, experience, certain expectation mismatch, or something that has happened. It's a temporary vairagya. At that time, there is a natural push towards
Withdrawing.
That withdrawal is a temporary Mauna, a Mauna condition, which is very useful. So situating this within this understanding is very useful, because then we know what we are going through, what everyone is going through. That gives us a framework. The use of an intellectual framework is the way, the future events can be predicted. Where are we heading? Is it okay or is it not okay? That's the use of such frameworks. They illustrate various use cases. So when a youngster we encounter is feeling a little detached owing to over communication, that's a very natural phenomenon. Now, when appropriately guided, that can be grown. No, it is just like the Indian science of Ayurveda, the science of life, has these three doshas, Vata, Pitta, Kapha, which are very intuitive in nature. The orientation is towards balance. Now, anything can cause imbalance. The environmental factors can cause imbalance. The food and dietary aspects can cause imbalance. Lifestyle parameters can cause imbalance. Stress can cause imbalance, and so on. And hence the automatic push is towards restoring the balance. When we are mindless of it, when we are not mindful of it, that's when, it gets pushed further and further. If we are a little mindful of it, knowing this framework, then it becomes a natural process of restoring balance. Likewise, when we experience a temporary detachment, it's a natural state of restoring balance.
Because maybe we have overdone certain things, and that has to be brought back to balance. And Mauna is a wonderful tool to bring it back.
Bring it back to balance. So, Vak Mauna, we can expand it to include communication of all kinds, where generally now we are expected to communicate a small thing and we immediately rush to communicate it with everybody.
In fact, even after the Mauna Sadhana programs, 2 to 3 days that we offer, people are in a hurry to communicate with others. So it means that the temporary withdrawal is also creating a certain stress. But of course, one can practice over multiple rounds and then multiple, say, sittings or whatever it is. And then they become very comfortable with that Vak Mauna.
Yeah. The next Mauna that is mentioned is Karana Mauna. Karana means instrument. So the instruments, this is called the Bahya Karana and the Anta Karana, inner instrument and the outer instrument. The Karana Mauna is to do with our sense of grasping various objects of our senses. We look at something, we get distracted. We grasp at that object. We hear something, we get distracted. We grasp internally, we grasp at those objects. And that causes various agitations and disturbances, which again topple the sense of balance that we have. So the process of Karana Mauna is consciously, conscious withdrawal from those sensory phenomena which cause a disturbance, which cause an agitation.
So that is why some isolated place or the right ambience like an ashram, or people talk about the Himalayas, that becomes important.
Very useful.
Because whatever is a distraction to the senses in our regular environment, that if it is withdrawn, at least we don't engage with them. And over a period of time, we learn how to be without them as well.
Yes, yes. So the third Mauna is Kashta Mauna. Kashta is, we have seen generally our body, when we try to withdraw, one of the things that happens is the body starts itching or shaking, or we just feel like doing something, not sitting still. That's why Kashta Mauna is an important step in the process, where the body is allowed to be still without movement. For it to be still, it needs to be in a state of relaxation, utter relaxation. And there, asana, pranayama practice are all very helpful. They assist in allowing the body to remain still.
So in fact, if we look at even Chitta Vritti Nirodha or the Mauna process, so it means that the asana and pranayama actually are preparatory steps. For many of us, asana itself can become the end goal. But what happens is they actually become preparatory steps so that dhyana happens effortlessly or mauna happens effortlessly. And even withdrawal of senses in terms of pratyahara, that also becomes a very important thing, as we saw, because our senses keep being engaged in the things that we see around us. The moment we open our eyes, we get distracted by those numerous things. and our body is not still. Even Patanjali Maharishi talks about it, about the shaking of the body vigorously, when we are starting out on this process. And hence, all these asana and pranayama become very, very crucial.
That's why Sthiram Sukham iti asana. That's very useful. Where just steadiness of the body, and not just steadiness of the body, the steadiness of the body as a process,
Yes.
where we see how to go through it. That's where elder people, when we are in front of elderly people, if we shake our legs unnecessarily, we would get scolded. Why? Because it's basically Kashta Mauna is advised. There should be no purposeless movement of the body. It should be a purposeful movement. Then it is under buddhi, it's reasonable. So using reason is considered so very important. And that's where understanding this framework is so liberating, because then we see these not as a problem to be fought against and to get into conflict within ourselves, but rather we would be able to map our pathway, our sadhana pathway, and restore a sense of balance by which those obstacles would cease to exist, would cease to bother us. Because even trying to sit still, one botheration would be the urge to move.
Like fidgeting, people do.
Yeah, fidgeting.
People fidget with pens. They keep doing something. So that can become an impediment to the Mauna process, because we don't we don't have the same experience. So if all these have to be worked upon stage by stage. But it could all look very complex. We talk about Vak Mauna, this thing. So
Karana
maybe
Mauna,
you can
Kashta
bring
Mauna.
something from your own personal experience. Is this all too complicated, or is it tough, or is it something that is unachievable, or what is it?
So I'm a normal guy. Okay, I'm married, and with my wife's permission and with my parents and elders' blessings, I could undertake long periods of Mauna Sadhana. So this is not unlike the ancient times where rishis were married, were grihasthas, very much situated within the grihastha dharma, having children. But periodically they would invest in tapasya, in sadhana, for the well-being of all. So it arose in my mind that for the purpose of Loka Sangraha, I need to undertake deep tapasya. And with the blessings of elders and with my wife's consent, I could undertake it. There, I could systematically explore, because the experience of samadhi was not a systematic exploration. It was more spontaneous. We could say purva karma, the consequence of purva karma. So I wish to discover it as a systematic procedure, so that it can benefit people in terms of the processes. So that's where I found that, for example, simple things, like I had to understand Vata, Pitta, Kapha. Without understanding Vata, Pitta, Kapha, I could not maintain a sense of balance within the body. Whatever you eat would destabilize the system. And especially when we are working and traveling. While traveling, I could not have food made by Smriti or myself. I had to eat out, or I had to eat from people that I did not know beforehand. And their usage of, generally in India, the usage of the balancing condiments, the spices are used to balance the tridoshas. I had to understand how different hands use these spices in different ways, so that I could mitigate the impact it has on this body. So that was a very useful learning. So even for my long duration sadhana, I did not want, obviously I did not want to communicate with anybody. So first, if I have to cook my own food, that would, be I found the body to be variable in its requirement of food. first day of my sadhana, I cooked this much handful of purungalarsi. Purungalarsi is pre-boiled rice. But that was a lot. Then progressively, I reduced it to this much. But even that was variable. For many weeks, I did not have hunger. So the body did not need food. And I did not have a theoretical understanding of it. And hence, I could not predict the movement. If I had an understanding of Ayurveda, it would have been very useful. But I did not possess it at that time. So I had to invest a little bit on the principles of Vata, Pitta, Kapha, which is very intuitive. So that's where I found aval to be something like a superfood, super diet. It was instantaneous. Aval is poha. So I could have one handful of poha in a day, and that would be sufficient. And it would not disturb my Vata, Pitta, Kapha. Otherwise, the Vata gets disturbed, and long duration, just allowing the body to be still for tens of hours was not possible with regular food. Like that, one by one, in terms of, Vak Mauna was not so much of a problem. Already a professor. So overdoing on talking has emptied that quota of energy, if we can say that. Karana Mauna was also not so much of a problem because it's a very simple phenomenon of non-responsiveness, non-reactiveness. So you have a stimulus, you choose not to respond. That gives you, over a period of time, to be able to inhibit your neuronal responses. In neuroscience, you have action potentials, you have neuronal responses to stimuli. So that can be inhibited. So you don't need to always have excitatory, response. Excitatory is a response. So you inhibit through your reasoning, through your non-reactiveness, and that also is trained. Your neural pathways develop to be able to inhibit the response.
So in fact, whenever we experience a certain external stress, so there is a certain stress response. And then over a period of time, we train ourselves on the same stress response, and hence it becomes quite chronic.
Yeah.
Or any kind of neural pathway that we form as habits, or just because by thinking, obsessive thinking about something, or obsessive compulsive disorders and things like that. And this Mauna definitely helps us to wean away from those.
Exactly.
Or certain neural pathways could just be changed. Certain new neural pathways can be formed.
And hence this could also be a therapeutic paradigm.
Yes, definitely. Because it is deeply relaxing in a way, deeply reflective.
Yeah.
So it means that, from what you're talking about your experience, it means that it's a combination of diet, it's a combination of environment. Also, it's a little bit of a willpower that we exercise, not to break the silence until something is achieved, something like that. And of course, abundance grace of the Guru.
Definitely.
Because that is what keeps us motivated, keeps us proceeding on the path. And we have definitely seen that whenever we talk about, from a modern scientific perspective, we also start noticing those epigenetic changes that happen, isn't it? Because we have a certain genetic makeup, but how it gets expressed and what age it gets expressed or what circumstances it gets expressed can be defined by the environment,
yeah,
or whatever we do in
the
terms
diet,
of
the lifestyle.
And Mauna definitely brings those changes because it changes many things. It could be hormonal activity, it could be at the neurotransmitter level, it could be at the physical level, and it could be even at the immunity level,
yes,
or in terms of stress response. There are so many dimensions that actually Mauna helps, just because there is a certain calmness that it brings. There is a certain non-reactive approach that it brings.
Yeah. In fact, it very interestingly leads to the first person,
yes,
understanding of these phenomena. Because in some modern sciences, we generally use, non-first person methodologies. But these are typically first person methodologies which build reliability over a period of time. Then we are on very reliable ground. So the last Mauna that's been described as Shushupti Mauna. So Shushupti Mauna is a consequence of Paravairagya, where through Jnana, one sees the divine pervaded through all this. All these diverse Namarupa the names and forms are nothing but that divine consciousness principle. When that dawns, that is called Shushupti Mauna, where there is not reality, there is not unreality. Everything becomes harmonized. In fact, the experience of Samadhi is something where everything gets harmonized in terms of the subject-object dual experience. This is the goal of the Mauna as a yoga sadhana. It's a sadhana.
In fact,
The means.
all the experience that we go through in this world is because of the duality. Because there is a certain I and there is something which is outside of us. But when this particular shell or whatever you can call it breaks, then it's a whole different thing.
And then what happens? Nothing big happens. Just that the neural pathways that have been conditioned by various raga and dvesha, the likes and dislikes, if you can say that, those are neural pathways, like pain pathways and reward pathways, as they have been likened in neuroscience. Those continue because of previous training. These are nothing but just channels of expression. But one is detached from this. One is not that. One is not the raga. One is not the dvesha, which define the personality, which define the person as such. One is free. And hence one clearly sees that is not there in the first place. It's just a play of, we can say, the gunas, where the all the language is useful in illustrating, in communicating, but that's about it. So with this, we come to an end of our session. We will, should we continue?
Yeah, we will have some interactions. Some questions are there from our participants. So I think I will, on their behalf, I will let you know the questions, and both of you can share the answers as well. Thank you so much for this wonderful clarity on what Mauna as a sadhana paradigm, how it is, and also bringing it with a kind of a scriptural base with Yoga Vasishta and other scriptures. You rightly brought out, and then also brought out the dimensions of the Tapatraya. I think today we are facing a Adi Devika of the pandemic situation, which is not in our control. Of course, what we can do, from our side, to at least the Adhyatmika, what we would face, the kind of inner fear and the depression and all those things, at least, definitely, as you have brought out, Mauna can be a wonderful solution for the contemporary situation as well. And what is more important is you have brought it out with your own experience also. Usually, as Upanishad says, the experience of this sadhana or Mauna is something which cannot be expressed through words also. Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasa saha. But you have very nicely brought out all those also, and added to that the kind of diet thing also, with your experience, how it could be for the practice of the Mauna. And you also, I have seen that in the ashram at Parani, what the Anadi Foundation is having, the retreat center, the ashram, you also have been giving such experiential sessions as well for people to go and experience. I'm sure many would be interested to go and experience for themselves also. So with this, I would also try to take some of the questions. There are many questions which are slowly pouring in. Dr. Pradap Reddy, who is a very regular participant in all our sessions, so he has asked a question: isn't verbal silence oxymoron?
So we can get into the literary nuances of it. But here we have tried to capture something like a feel of it. More than the language part of it, it's more a feel.
In fact, the 4 types of Mauna is to illustrate that it's not just keeping quiet. Silence is not just keeping quiet verbally, but it's more than that. To do with the body, to do with the Karana, and the Sushupti state as well. So that is what is meant by not just verbal silence, but more than that.
And hence we have expanded it in terms of communication. Verbal is not just verbal, but also what we communicate, the various gadgets that we use to communicate, because they have a stimulus response, connotation to it. So that I think is very important to get a hang of, if you can say.
And we have another, of course, it's a comment as well as a question both together from Sunil Kumar, who has said, both of you look like the epitome of stillness or mauna. What would you advise to people to be in a constant, unquiet environment? People who are in a constant, unquiet environment and pressures, what would you advise to them to be on their mental, physical space?
So we might look like being still because of the pandemic situation. Otherwise, our lives are quite busy. In fact, before the Corona lockdown, every almost 4 to 5 days a week, I would be on the roads. Traveling, travel was heavy, meeting diverse kinds of people and diverse situations. So that's where I have, the perspective that we are trying to bring is from a very, very practical standpoint. It is not cessation of work. Clearly in the Yoga Vasishta, Muni Vasishta clearly advises Sri Rama not to give up work. Be firm in your Swadharma, but realizing clearly that you are beyond all this. So being firm in our Swadharma is very, very important. So that means constant, unquiet environment, pressures, facing pressures. Yes, at least we don't face the kind of pressures that Sri Rama would have. He had Ravana to kill, So I'm just drawing a parallel here. So definitely the modern environment puts a lot of pressure. That's why we have looked at Vak in terms of communication. One of the pressures is in terms of the stimulus coming through asynchronous communication. Anytime the mobile goes on, goes off, there is social media, WhatsApp, Facebook, and there is not synchronous communication. Synchronous means you can predict, okay, at this time, this person will get in touch with me. It's not so. Anytime anybody out of the blue can get in touch with you and you are supposed to respond. That causes a certain pressure. Now, can it be done away with? We are not recommending that, because but can one build up the capability to handle that? Yes, it can be built. So what is the imbalance that such communication creates? And hence regulating it in terms of a restorative balance, which is what Mauna is. There, Mauna is not in terms of 150 days. That is too much. It would just be, say, a couple of hours, but that would restore the balance. When we understand this as a conceptual, intellectual framework, then actually we are not frustrated, we are not depressed, and we are just okay with the pressures of life, with the pressures of grahastha life. We are okay with it, and we look at it in terms of building up capability, investing in capability, and also clearly observing our own growth trajectory.
So in fact, once the lockdown started, we have been offering online Mauna Sadhana programs, because people have work from home, but this Mauna Sadhana programs are integrated into the schedule so that people can spend 3 hours in the morning and 3 hours in the evening, but the remaining part of the day they will be available, because that really helps them to kickstart themselves on the path. So it's not about setting an idealistic goal that 15 days I will be on Mauna, but let's start with 3 hours, or let's start with...
In fact, there are a couple of questions on that. In fact, one Mr. Doreraj has asked, can you please give an outline about your Mauna Sadhana program? Is it something like the Vipassana? So one question is like this. I would also connect 2 or 3 other questions. I think the answer could be the same for the questions, though they differ. So Doreraj has asked about the Mauna Sadhana program. Is it something like the Vipassana? And also Renuka Jape, she has asked, what should be the pattern or duration of Vak Mauna? Is it like half an hour or half an hour to 1 day? What is the pattern or the duration of the Vak Mauna that you have mentioned? So I think you can answer, Smriti and Aditi.
Vipassana is it's not in the confines of your own home. It is, you need to go into a residential facility for a certain length of time. I believe it's more than a week. If I'm not wrong, more than a week.
Yeah.
I have
Usually,
limited exposure
10
to it.
days. Usually Vipassana is a 10-day program with you.
10-day program. Okay. I have limited exposure to it, so I'm just guessing. So 10 days, you are in a residential facility and you go through it. That's very, very good. But is it suitable for you? That is a very critical question. So sometimes that could put a lot of pressure to one who does not have the necessary vairagya. That's why in our talk we illustrated on the concept of vairagya. If the necessary vairagya is not there, then it very soon dissipates. It is like fuel to fire. If sufficient fuel is not there, the fire goes out. The fire of taking up that 1 week or 10-day sadhana goes off very soon. So are you prepared for that? Otherwise, to restore balance, you get onto a shorter duration, guided program where you get a feel for it. Again, you come back to it. Again, you come back to it, and then progress on to a 10-day or a longer duration program. That would be very fulfilling. Otherwise, a 10-day program, if you are not sufficiently detached, if you do not have sufficient vairagya, can actually be counterproductive, because you'd be deeply frustrated with the experience, not necessarily feel fulfilled about that experience.
And it's also that all these systems come from basically our shastras. So all of these are valid methods, and that is why you have a bouquet of methods, each one depending on however it suits them.
Yeah.
Because I've known personally people who have been part of Vipassana and they've experienced very wonderful states. So it is not differentiating this Mauna Sadhana with Vipassana, because each one subsumes the other, because they all come from a certain,
the underlying basis.
Yes.
Very true. In fact, there's another question. I think it's already answered. Vairamuthu has asked, what is the way for converging Chintana in Mauna? So I think the phase by phase, process, what you have told itself, from thoughts to, go into a silence, that can be of help. And also we have another question from Sudha Suresh. Have you experienced total shunya or emptiness during your Mauna Sadhana?
Yes.
Yes. So that is the question.
Okay. If that was not the answer that was sought, yeah, total shunya is it's a very simple condition. That's like baseline condition. Thoughts or responses are require energy. It's like you need to push it. If all the nadis are cleansed, and basically vasanas need to be very thin. Otherwise, we are bound by our vasanas. Vasanas are like compulsive, responses to situations which bubble up from deeper, consciousness. When those have been worked upon previously, then you encounter a condition where the nadis are cleansed, because the nadis can be blocked because of vasanas. So karma yoga, that's why it's very, very recommended, very, very important. So doing the duty with karma phala tyaga is so very recommended, that cannot be underlined more. So shunya, or complete silence, is going beyond your vasanas, where there are no responses to outer stimuli. It becomes absolutely still, and hence you cannot say you are still.
Yeah.
There is no boundary, this, that, nothing whatsoever exists. It's a very high energy condition. So the body definitely needs to be prepared properly, because it would not be able to handle the energy otherwise. So these are properly elaborated in the Yoga Shastras. That's why having an intellectual understanding of the Yoga Shastras is also very useful, so that we understand what is happening to us.
Very true. And we have another question from Dr. Jayaprakash Gupta, who asks, should not silence come naturally making an effort or forcing it will cause its own inertia and irritation or frustration. Any thoughts, how to deal with that?
Sorry,
So should, I think he's
there are
asking,
multiple parts to the question.
yeah, should not silence come naturally? Making an effort or forcing it, will it not cause its own inertia or irritation further? So that's what.
Yes, yes.
I think we is asking whether by undergoing such programs or something, can we go into that natural state? Should it not come naturally on its own is what it, I think he means.
So it is like, for example, our nature is described in terms of Satchit Ananda Swarupa. So we are of the nature of Chit or Jnana. That's our very nature. But still we go to educational institutions to gain Jnana. We go to teachers, we go to gurus. That's to be able to awaken us to our own reality. So our reality is in terms of Mauna itself. It is a very natural condition. But it is to be able to reinforce that condition and act like a mirror that one goes to such programs where that is reawakened. That intelligence, if we can say, is reawakened. With that, one is able to be on consistent and firm ground. It is like a self-conviction that one gains. So that is the process that happens. So that way, these programs, so Mauna is a very natural condition, as you have rightly observed.
And that is why, initially during the talk, we mentioned that who has a thirst for Mauna? When people feel that, this is it, kind of, I'm done with all my talking, or I'm done with all my exploration and things like that, then they develop the necessary Vairagya. And hence it is not a forced process. It's more of today, now I feel that I'm ready for Mauna, and hence we take it up. That's how it can be looked at.
Yeah. So
or if you're already in a fulfilled state and you use the Mauna as a tool for further exploration or for Loka Sangraha, or to teach others about the intricate processes, then also it can be used. Definitely, if it is forced on others, it can become quite problematic.
That's why the programs are more in terms of accelerating it.
Yes.
It's like an educational institution accelerating your gain of knowledge, because others have worked on it and provide you with a clear pathway for your progress rather than your own exploration.
Very nice. Also, we have a question from one of our attendee who is asked about, samadhi. You have mentioned, samadhi. So is it a conscious state or a subconscious state? And how can one come back to the conscious state again with will?
Yes, that's where, for example, it's useful to refer to Mandukya Upanishad, which talks of the flow of awareness from Sushupti to there is Swapna, and then to Jagrat Avastha. Then again, the Turiya is the fourth condition, which is the continual flow of awareness. The flow of awareness is never broken in the first place. But when we identify too much with the Jagrat state, Jagrat Avastha means you are utilizing the Antakarana and the Bahyakarana, inner instrument and the outer instrument, to act out in the world. So one is totally identified, immersed in that reality, and hence one does not identify oneself as a unbroken awareness. Similarly, in the Swapna Avastha, the Bahyakarana is not being used, but the Antakarana is being used. And again, the Antakarana and Bahyakarana in the Swapna and the Jagrat Avastha. That is, Jagrat means waking state, and Swapna Avastha means dream state. In these conditions, different people utilize these instruments, the body and the mind, differently. They have different capabilities to utilize these instruments. Now, these are bound by cause and effect. While Sushupti is deep sleep condition, where one is not utilizing the Bahyakarana, not utilizing the Antakarana, not utilizing the body and mind. One is completely still. And then when one wakes up, because that's how the instrument is designed, when one wakes up, actually one feels, one remembers and invokes that, wow, I had a wonderful sleep, right? During sleep, you don't have that awareness, but that underlying awareness is there, ever present, but it is not attached to anything. That's why it's just causal. It does not have a effect, not a cause-effect relationship. While Swapna and Jagrat have a cause and effect relationship. Similarly, in Samadhi, as in Sushupti, Sushupti means unconscious sleep, but Samadhi is a complete restfulness which is conscious. But conscious does not mean you are utilizing the Antakarana and the Bahyakarana. But most of us would not be able to relate to it because of lack of training. So we don't know how to switch on the mind and switch off the mind. The remote control for our mind is not in our hands. If we can look at it in modern, so Samadhi is definitely a very conscious experience. But later you remember after coming out of it that, oh, I had it. No, not during Samadhi, obviously.
Very nice. And I think more questions are still coming. I thought after the experience of Mauna, no more questions, but that shows people are still alert. And so one of the question we have is, in silence of thoughts, when you say silence of thoughts, does the observer also become silent?
So silence of thought again is to do with, again I take the what is given in Mandukya Upanishad, because it's it's very powerful in capturing this in a very functional manner. So silence of thought, again, thought, most of us express ourselves only in terms of the body, emotion and cognition. We don't know what is beyond this. Beyond this, all that we know is Sushupti. Sushupti is that is the only silence of thought that we would have encountered, but that is unconscious. But with sadhana, sadhana is the process. With yoga sadhana, with yoga abhyasa, over a period of time, one would be able to retain stillness and just use this body and mind as instruments. One is not immersed in the instruments. One would always be detached. There would be a huge distance between oneself and the body and mind. There would be a distance. One is not that. Now, this might seem contradictory. It is not contradictory. This might seem contradictory because of our training that we have received in modern education. While if we receive training in traditional education, like our Upanishads or Vedanta Shastras or Yoga Shastras and so on, actually it becomes quite intuitive. We can immediately perceive this knowledge without the use of thought, conscious thought.
Yes, and of course, we can always learn more from you after attending many of your sessions. People can still get more insights from you, I'm sure. And of course, one last question I think will take. Many have asked about, you have brought this wonderful, interesting concepts from the scriptures, especially Yoga Vasishta you did mention. So is there any particular commentary or a translation that you would like to recommend for Yoga Vasishta, which explains these concepts in depth?
A very modern classic rendering is Swami Venkatesananda's rendering, which is more like daily reading. Now, Yoga Vasishta stills your mind. It blows your mind away. So I would not recommend very active people to take up the study in an intensive manner. I would not definitely recommend that, because it definitely has a stilling effect. It puts your mind to rest. So again, please take up Yoga Vasishta Sadhana only with the concurrence of your spouses, your family, your elders' blessings. Those all are very critical, not otherwise. And I'm not kidding. It's very sane, practical.
That way you were very fortunate to take this journey ahead with Smriti ji also joining with you. And I think that's a good recommendation that you brought in. And yes, I think we will have Anuradha ji also joining with us to tell about the other programs for today. And of course, we have Deborah ji who has commented that looking at your webpage, I see that your programs at a first glance or oriented to the young people, or you also offering any programs where people of all other ages, the seniors also can attend when the pandemic allows later? I think in the end we can, we will have time for you to share how people can reach out to you and contact you. All those, when you share, you can answer this also, that whether the programs are only for the young people or everybody can attend it also is one last question. And we would have Anuradha ji to share a few things for today's sessions.
Thank you very much. I could not resist coming in and breaking the mauna of just sitting and listening to you because there was so much of food for thought there. So I was first and foremost wondering how I could also sign up. There's a lot around me who would agree that it would be a very helpful exercise to pursue. So that was one. The other, I just wanted to inform our audience that we first actually met Adinarayan ji in the context of a program that Vinay ji and I were conducting at the Center for Indian Psychology in Jain University in Bangalore. And the reason for doing this center was to highlight an alternative paradigm of psychology coming from the Indic perspectives. In that, we were discussing the workshop that we had organized, and Adinarayan ji was there, was on first person research methods. So Adinarayan ji talked about that, but the reason why I felt it is important to say these few words here is to also encourage our participants to start engaging in this process of a first person research. We find that a lot of our yogis, a lot of the yogis, including yesterday, Yogi Maheshwara ji showed us how he makes these detailed notes about the progress he's making and the different experiments that are being undertaken, because that is the science of yoga. Most of us are engaged with the art of yoga, but this approach of a rigorous subjectivity that Indian psychology talks about is about trying to encourage each one of us to become an active researcher in our seeking by taking it up in a research mode and conducting experiments very systematically, like Adinarayan ji has beautifully shared with us. And just two other quick thoughts I had here is that your presentation really made the whole concept of the Yoga Sutras Ishvara very accessible, because the concept of the Ishvara in the Yoga Sutras 1.23 is that the Ishvara is klesha karma vipakashayai aparamrishtah purusha vishesha, which means that one who's unaffected by the klesha and the karma and the results of that as the vasana, etc. So if you will have to listen to this lecture again and again, because he's very beautifully showing us how that sequence, even neurologically, helps us to rewire our neural networks and experience the benefits of what Yoga Sutra talks about, of samadhi, sushupti and then samadhi, which are accessible to ordinary people. They're not just some great yogi sitting in the mountains alone who can do it. And that is the very purpose of yoga practices, irrespective of the domain in which we are carrying it out. So we're extremely grateful that you use this platform for this honest sharing of what you are doing in your daily activity and your daily workshops with many other students. And the second point that just struck me is that in the Vedas, they talk about Krinmantu Vishwam Aryan, make of the whole word Aryas. And Sri Aurobindo has this definition. He says that the Arya, I'll keep it very short, he says the Arya is one who strives and overcomes all outside him and within him that stands opposed to human advance. Self-conquest is the first law of his nature. He overcomes mind and its habits and does not live in a shell of ignorance, inherited prejudices, customary ideas, pleasant opinions, but knows how to seek and choose to be large and flexible in intelligence, even as he is firm and strong in his will. So through your work, you are practicing this declaration of the Vedas, which is Krinmantu Vishwam Aryan. So thank you again. As a couple, I think that is a great inspiration for society of how one can together embark on this journey and be a help for each other. Wonderful, absolutely. So I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce the evening's program. So this evening we have a very senior sadhaka from Slovakia, Geza Timchak. He's the president of the Slovak Association in Košice in Slovakia, and he's also a long-time practitioner of different forms of sadhana, a hatha yogi. He has a group of very dedicated sadhakas and sadhikas along with him. He's going to be talking to us on Sri Chakra, its practical applications in our life and how it can help us to overcome our ahankara. Geza is also a very senior member of the European Union of Yoga, which is a collaborating organization for this festival. So please join us. He's one of the most humble and gentle individuals that I have encountered in my life, and a tremendous person to listen to. So please be there. With these few words, Subbu Bhaiya, I offer it back to you. I allow you to continue. And Subbu Bhaiya is always brilliant, so there's nothing more to say on that.
Thank you, Anuji, for bringing those added dimensions as well. The first-hand research, which is important, and Sri Aurobindo's thoughts on it added to that. That's how the session gets more enriched with more thoughts coming from all corners. Yes, please.
Yes, just the last thing is this idea of ambassador of wellness that we are
Yes.
trying to promote as a continuation, as a something that has evolved from this particular festival. So try and become an ambassador of wellness. Try and nominate a friend or two to take on this work. Pass the light on, pass the baton on, so that we can create a happier and healthier and a world that is better for all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anuji. And we come back again to our, yogi couple, Sri Adi Narayanan and Smriti ji, for, getting to know how, one is, I have two questions to you. One is how people can reach to you. Of course, the Anadi Foundation, the ashram, which you have, people can go through your website. I think we have already shared your website to people, so they can go through and get in touch with you. Also, what are the kind of programs where they can be a part of it? You can just share about it. Also, what is your message, final take-home message for all of our sadhakas who are with us in this Global Festival of Yoga? What, as a couple, that you would like to present to them as your message?
So as for the question, how to connect to us, of course, you have mentioned the website. And we have, since the lockdown, we have been offering numerous programs for all people, children, youth, and adults as well. So anadi.org, anaadi.org/online has the details of the online programs. And every month we have the Essence of Dharma series, which uncovers the Itihasa Purana, as well as the philosophical works of Adi Shankaracharya and Bhagavad Gita and Yoga Vasishta as well. And also we have Mauna Sadhana coming up every month. So one Mauna Sadhana is upcoming on the next weekend. I think it's 25th or so. And people can register in that. It's it's designed so that it's integrated well with the daily schedule of people. So anadi.org/online has the details of the Mauna Sadhana program as well. And we would love for everyone to visit the ashram. We are located near Palani. Murugan showers his blessings every day, and he's been keeping us happy and healthy all these years. And so please do visit our ashram. Palani is located about 100 kilometers from Coimbatore in Tamil Nadu.
So Coimbatore is the nearest airport.
Nearest
it's
airport.
an international airport.
It's an international airport. So that is one way to come here. And the programs are not just for the youth, it's for everyone. And of course, we do Mauna Sadhana program here, yoga-based programs here. We also do rural outreach. So if there is some kind of volunteering that you're interested, that is also possible. And
short and long duration stay is also possible.
And in fact, there is, in Uttarayana, we are about to announce the program. We also have a slightly long-term program that is upcoming for people who are especially interested in exploring different dimensions of Bharatiya Parampara. People can stay in the ashram, of course, depending on how the COVID situation unfolds. we will be having it post lockdown. That we will put it on our website and also circulate it to different social media sites. People can also follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/Anadi Foundation, facebook.com/Adi Narayanan V, which I'll put it on the chat box for everybody. So thank you for being with us on this journey.
Yeah.
And
And fundamentally, it's about, all of us connecting with ourselves. That sense of fulfillment that we seek, that leads us on a quest. And our Shastras and our Rishi Parampara has numerous insights on it in a very reliable manner that can be utilized for our benefit, with just a little bit of exposure. So that's why gaining exposure, a little bit of exposure, and putting it in practice is not a distant dream at all. It is very much accessible to each and every one of us in our daily busy life. It does not mean, detaching ourselves from our regular life. It does not mean that at all. In fact, that's what our Shastras, our Rishi Parampara clearly advises.
And whenever it comes to yoga sadhana or any kind of sadhana, it's not a boring process, or it's not something that you need to cry about. It's a very energetic, it's a very vibrant process that all of us can participate, and then the well-being of the nation lies in our hands. So if each one of us invests time and then figure this out, so many more people can actually be benefited through this. So let's not be a crybaby. Let's be a happy person through this sadhana process. Let's become energetic and enthusiastic about our lives.
Yeah. So meditation is not about looking for obstacles in our lives.
Yes.
It's about believing in ourselves, having self-confidence. Definitely that makes us energetic, vibrant, and
and who
be of
doesn't
service to the world.
have problems? Who doesn't have obstacles? We have to just put them behind and then move forward in this path.
Yeah.
Very nice. I think that's a wonderful
Just
message.
end with a small prayer, just to end from our side.
Yes.
Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.
Yes,
Yeah.
Subodh.
I think that's a nice message that we have come to the conclusion of this wonderful session. And when it comes to the question of youth, I think once you've taken up the path of yoga, you are always youthful. It is ageless Atman which is traveling in the aging body. So all this sadhana is ultimately taking us to our Swarupa, and with this, though this is kind of, we can say at a time it is as old as the entire Jagat which is there, but yet Abhinava, it is always new. It is always ever new and youthful. That way we are all youth and we can all be like children and then enjoy yoga in every bit of our life. Thank you, Adi Narayan ji and Smriti ji. It was nice once again to be connected with both of you and to learn a lot, share a lot. And I'm sure all of our audience are going to be in touch with you, take their journey ahead with you. And again, today evening, as Sri Anuradha ji has said, we're going to have a wonderful sadhana session with Sri Chakra Sadhana. I think today is a very auspicious day for it. Today is a Friday evening, and also the Tamil month. We have Adiji and Smriti from Parani, from Tamil Nadu, in the Tamil month of Ashada. This is Adi Masi. So Adi Friday is a very auspicious. I don't know whether Anuradha ji and Vinay ji looked into the Panchangam and have fixed this evening sadhana for Sri Chakra. Usually, you will see even Shringeri Shankaracharya and all the Shankaracharyas will be sitting and doing the Sri Chakra sadhana today evening. So it's very coincidental that we are going to have the sadhana this evening. So let's all join again in this evening for this wonderful sadhana. Stay tuned. Until then, namaste. Thank you all. Thank you, Adiji and Smriti ji. Thank you all the participants for the wonderful participation.